Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. Today, my guest is Chad Hawley, and he is the founder of NEXUS Mountain Network. What is that? Well, the mission of the NEXUS Mountain Network is to join people together with a common goal of achieving God's purpose within the 7 mountains of influence. Chad, I'm so excited to have you as my guest today. And I would also like to say your lovely wife, Wendy, is also one of the founders. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. This is great. I'm so glad to meet you again and excited to talk to you.
Absolutely. So let's just get right down to what is your story and how did you come about wanting to start this network? I know everyone wants to know that.
Yeah, the story is really what set up the network. And so I can't share the network without sharing the story because the story is powerful and hopefully it inspires people, especially who need hope. And so a few years ago, Nicole, I got diagnosed with cancer and it got pretty bad. I had 2 surgeries, and after the second surgery, the doctor said, okay, we're going to do a scan in 30 days. After that 30 days, if we find something, Chad, not good, because that means it's already spread. And so that will determine really my prognosis and potentially my future. Been married at that time, I've married 20 years, 4 kids, a man who's lived his life full of faith and a focus on my family. So after my second surgery, the doctor called me after 30 days after another scan, and he says, Chad, I'm sorry, it's already spread. And so that was a really tough phone call. And up until this time, because I believe because I was a man of faith, that I just had it. And I had what's called peace that passes all understanding. Like, you're not supposed to have peace, but I had it. I was sleeping at night. I wasn't worried about death. But I'll be honest, once I got that phone call, it was gone. The peace went, the peace left. And so I went to a deep depression for a couple of days, and I got on my face in my bedroom and I reached out to God and I said, God, why did you create me? Because I figured if I got some kind of answer, then I could hold him accountable for keeping me alive if I had not fulfilled my purpose yet. And so I did. I got this idea that came to my mind. You know, I didn't hear like a Chad from the heavenlies, or and some people have,
Everyone wants to hear that when they're like, what's my purpose, right?
Maybe I was looking for that.
Yeah.
And so what I got was this unction and idea that just came into my mind. And I took it and I said, okay. And the idea was, Nicole, that I was going to create a Christian-based social network that was going to be organized so that Christians could connect together, learn together, and achieve together in society outside of what we would call the 4 walls of the church. Now, who gets that idea when you're thinking about death, right?
Right.
So I get this idea and I'm like, I have to get rid of these thoughts of death into my mind. So I created a movie trailer on my computer. I was a pharmaceutical guy. I was not a technical guy. I had experience in sales, marketing, branding, training, that kind of stuff, but not technical. And I wrote a script.
Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. You learned how to do the technical aspect.
I did.
Making a movie.
Pretty much. Well, I was desperate, so I was willing to do anything. And what I found myself doing was not thinking about death anymore.
Yeah.
I found myself thinking about reasons I was going to live. And so I took this thing, I made a script. I mean, I know how to do marketing, but I didn't know how to do the technical. So I did this script and I did this voiceover. I had animations and sounds. It wasn't all that great, but it was meaningful.
Yeah.
And I took it, Nicole, and I submitted it to my inner circle of people. And I said, agree with me that I'm going to live and not die, and I'm going to fulfill this purpose. I did not share with hardly anyone, just a few. It was very personal to me.
Sure.
And suddenly, after I did that, a series of events happened. And I'll call them God events without taking too much time here. Supernatural type stuff. And then, keep in mind, so the doctor said, Chad, we can try chemo, we can try radiation, and we can try a 3rd surgery to cut out part of your tongue to keep you alive. I'm like, man, I love to speak. So, I like to talk. It's what I do. And so this was my plan. That was the doctor's plan for me. After I submitted the video and a series of really awesome things happened, I felt like God was at work. I ended up going to MD Anderson, which is one of the most, one of the prestigious cancer institutes in the world. I had 11 appointments lined up. I believe it was 11. They were about to make $1 million off of me. We go into the first appointment, my wife and I, Wendy. We go, and she's just like, I'm putting my hand up. She's shaking. I'm shaking because we're just like, feel like we're facing a death sentence. And we go into the first doctor, and the doctor looks me over, and he looks at one of the results that he looked at. And he looked back at me, and he looked in my throat. He says, Chad, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. Yeah, that look was what I did. And and Wendy did, where her eyes got really big, like, what? He goes, I'm gonna order an ultrasound just to verify what I think is true. So he ordered the ultrasound. The nurse comes in, swings open the curtain, and she goes, Chad, you can go now. And I said, you mean go as in like you'll call me with the results, or go, they found nothing? She says, Chad, they found nothing.
Wow.
The doctor called me, says, Chad, I'm canceling all your appointments. You go home. There's nothing wrong with you. And I don't expect you to have a problem with this ever again. And so that was amazing in itself. So then I'm thinking, okay, what about this idea? And so I wasn't released yet to do this idea for almost 3 years. And it just stirred in me. And I was like, it's burning. I'm like, what happened to that purpose thing? This purpose thing that saved my life. And so I wasn't released until last year. Finally, like everything lined up, and so many things happened that were so powerful. It was crystal clear that this was my purpose and this is what I was supposed to do. And now was the time to do it, without getting into some amazing stories that set me up for that. And that's how the NEXUS Mountain Network started. And I left last year. I left the pharmaceutical industry, had over 20 years experience. And I built this beautiful state-of-the-art app, which can be found on Apple and Google Play, called NEXUS Mountain Network. And then on August the 18th of last year, which was my birthday, instead of death, I celebrated life by launching my purpose, the NEXUS Mountain Network.
What a story. I mean, right there, a miracle happened, and you fulfilled the purpose that was in your heart, that God had put in your heart. So explain, first of all, the name itself. Give me a little background on that, NEXUS Mountain Network.
Yeah. So it's a little play on words. Nexus means to bind and connect. And so what we're doing is, if you even go look up, nexusmountaintennetwork.com, or you go in the app, it's hard to find me and my wife's name or picture, because Nexus is, even though we're the founders, it's a collaboration. And we feel that it is imperative right now during this time that we work together to connect, learn, and achieve. So that's where Nexus comes from. The word mountain comes from is because we have an emphasis on a concept called the 7 mountains of influence. These are the 7 categories that shape culture. That's business. You're doing media, arts and entertainment, religion, education, government, business, and I think I'm missing one. I can't remember. Family. Thank you. Good job. You got number 7. So these are the 7. And so people have like these unctions and special interest in these 7 categories. Usually there's a primary and secondary. Like for you, obviously you're in media. Your secondary might be family. I don't know.
I took the test, or the quiz on your app, and mine is family.
Oh, perfect. So my test worked. That's why it was my assumption for you. Yeah, so we have a little test that we do, and so it helps bring people direction, like, what am I supposed to do? Especially if you're thinking, I want to do more, I want to help more people, I want to live on purpose. Does that just mean I go to church, or can I go help someone else? And that gives direction. That's where the name comes from. And the network name, NEXUS Mountain Network, is we're a network of people, not a television show, even though I have a show that we started that has a lot of favor, which we're excited about. But the network is the network of people.
So NEXUS Mountain Network, you have a website or the app, you go onto it. it's sort of like a social media network, but with a bigger purpose of how you serve God within your 7 mountains and connect with other Christians. And what do other people gain from doing that? Yes, they get the connection, the camaraderie, but the picture is bigger and how you want to make a difference in the world, correct?
It is, and we have three pillars. I may have mentioned this, but just in case. So the three pillars are, and they're in sequential order when we launched it, is the first thing we need to connect with one another outside of our circles, because then we can establish trust, and then we can learn from another, and then we can ultimately make a difference and do something. And so it's connect, learn, and achieve. We have an app. We're not an app organization, but we have an app that is a tool that helps us. So in the app, we have capabilities similar to Facebook. We have capabilities similar to LinkedIn and podcasts because we have our own show, but we also get together and have local events. And then we have a big event, which you're going to be a part of, which we're so excited. You were such a good catch for us.
Oh, well, you're very kind, but I'll do my
No,
best
not
for you.
being kind. My wife and I and Wendy, I were so excited that we were introduced to you and that you're going to be there. So we have this huge event coming up on June 17th in Charlotte called it's our first inaugural NEXUS Summit. And that's going to be really exciting.
So that just is a perfect segue into this summit that I'll be talking about the media and what I do and the role that it plays. And you'll have other Cliff Notes speakers and Q&A sessions. So let's just go ahead and take the deep dive into this summit, what it's all about, how people can get involved, and what you hope to achieve by hosting it.
Yeah, so we intentionally are spreading our wings a little bit to get outside even our personal networks. And you're a perfect example of this because we didn't know you and someone introduced us and said, you got to meet her. She's amazing. And they were right. And so basically we're doing a one-day event in Charlotte, North Carolina on June 17th. We're going to do this very, very differently. In fact, at the very top of our webpage for the event, it says no long presentations.
Yeah. You're like, whoa, thank goodness. No.
Yes, with all of our attention spans. But
I know.
so, and what that shows is this is a collaboration. We're not coming to watch one person speak and go, oh, hurry up. Or maybe they're awesome, but then we start to fade after 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But so we're going to have graffiti boards there. We're going to have interview stations. We're going to have podcast people to be sitting and interviewing people. If you want a professional headshot to set up whatever your network is, you can come get one of those. And then we have Cliff Notes, which is you're going to be a part of when it's a play on words on the 7 mountains. And it's a 10-minute inspirational talk from each one of the 7 mountain leaders. Yeah. And so we have some amazing people coming from out of town. We got some people coming from DC, Oklahoma, people that run for governor or they're head of a missionary group or whatever it is. And then we're going to have a local pastors panel that they're going to say, hey, listen, go. And this is why you have to do it. And these are leaders doing it. And we're going to be moving and hopping and shaking throughout the day. And ultimately, what we'd like to do is to be able to replicate this in cities around the United States so that people are connected and feel like they can make a difference.
Absolutely. I love that. And did we talk about government earlier? Because government, education, religion, family, media, business, and entertainment. Because Elizabeth Enns is the government piece of this, and she's how I got to know you. So we were already networking and we didn't even know it, right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so that's exactly what it is. And Dr. Elizabeth Enns, she ran for state representative in South Carolina, and she has an organization called Patriotic Students of America. She loves this nation. She loves the people, and she's willing to do what it takes. And those are the type of leaders that we have coming, and they're saying, I want to be a part of this because I want to make a difference because I have a purpose too. Yeah. And so, and that ultimately, like I'm looking at my own video screen, I got this thing back here. So it ultimately led me to write my first book. And this is my first book back here. And the story I just told you, purpose literally, not just, it saved my life. Yes. Like something happened spiritually to me physically when this happened. And so, so part of one of the things within the network, the second pillar is learn. And so I wrote this first book. I used to be the national sales trainer for one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world. And I developed my skills and training and programs and professional development. And so I took the combo of those experiences with the supernatural faith-based experiences, put it in a book. I have QR codes that you can see videos and workshops, and it takes you through how step by step, how to find out what your purpose is and what steps you should take right now. Because a lot of people, most people, in fact, 83% of people don't even have goals. So they have an idea in their head. Maybe they have an idea. I want to write a book, but that's just sits there for 2 years.
Right.
Versus, all right, we're going to help you. We're going to tell you how to do it. We're going to hold you accountable, and you're going to get it done.
I love that. And, I think about my purpose. I was a main anchor for a television station, a local television station, for 30 plus years. And when I retired full time, I thought, what is the purpose of my life now? And for me, sharing people's stories like yours and Wendy's, and now the Nexus Mountain Network story, I feel is my purpose, because I want my platforms to be positive, faith-based, good and kind, and giving people information that makes their lives better. So this has been a new transition for me to reach out and try to expand my social media platforms and use Conversations with Nicole to make the world a better place and make that my purpose. But it is hard sometimes when you are moving through life. And that's the beautiful thing about your book, about the network, that you can help people take those next steps and put your life into action.
Yeah, one of the questions I ask, and when you come on our show, I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
But I ask people, and sometimes it stops people. And I actually did a presentation last night on this. And the question is, what did you want to be when you grew up? And so go ahead. Do you have an answer to that?
You're going to laugh.
What is it?
I wanted to be a race car driver when I was very young.
Interesting.
I don't know what that means now at my age.
Yeah.
I think it was because I like action and going fast and the excitement of it all, which sort of is a play into media, because every day it's something different.
So this is cool. So last night, one of the people, I asked this and I got some audience participation. One of the person said, I want to be an Olympian pole vault person.
Wow.
And so that's what they initially said. And then I explained a concept that was really revealing, and that is this. We can say what we want to be when we grow up, but the catch is, what does God want you to be when you grow up? Sometimes there's a difference. And that's where, when I was dying, I thought I was dying of cancer, that's when I got a real answer. And so by the end of my talk, this person that actually said that, they raised their hand again and said, can I say something? I said, well, what is it? He said, I want to change my mind. Already within like 10 minutes, he wanted to change his mind. I said, what is it? He goes, I actually took it and twisted it and said, what does God want me to be when I grow up? And he says, I want to be a healer. I want to help people heal. And it was this revelation that came over him of, sometimes we have these ideas we want to be versus what he wants us to be. And when we find out what he wants us to be, and that's what I did, then there's favor upon it. And it's like the pressure of fulfilling it falls off our shoulders.
That's so good and so true. So very true. We often need to just sit quietly sometimes and listen to what God wants as opposed to what we want. And that's really sort of how the world is sometimes. We're listening to the worldly things out there rather than, the spiritual aspect of our life. So a couple of things. How can people get your book? How can people join the network and do this Nexus Mountain Network with you?
Yeah, thank you. The easiest way to get involved and stay in the loop is go download the app. The app is called Nexus Mountain Network. You can find it in Apple stores and Google Play. It's number one. If you're not an app person, you refuse to do it, then you can go to nexusmountaintnetwork.com. You'll see information about the book. You'll see information about the network. And we're going to be putting up, probably in the next day or so, information about the Nexus Summit, which Nicole will be one of the leaders on June 17th.
Well, I'm looking forward to that event. I honestly, this sounds sort of probably odd to you, but I really am not a big fan of public speaking. But when you asked me and Wendy asked me, I said, let me pray about it. Let me think about it. And then I did. And I really felt moved to do that because we have to listen and we have to get out of our comfort zone too. And that's a biggie for people to step out of their comfort zone. But when you do, the blessings are so much more than you just staying in that little shell, I would suspect, or at least that's how I have felt.
Yeah.
And I'm sure for you too, to just quit your job and do what you're doing now, right?
Yeah. And, when you say that, that actually means something to Wendy and I, because what it also says is that when leaders say, I'm going to pray about whether I should do that or not, and they say, I feel like I'm supposed to, and it encourages us that we're on the right path, because other people are saying, this is important, this is meaningful, and I want to get behind it. And we've had people do that. We've got someone coming, like I said, we got someone coming from Oklahoma that's, he has a big platform and stuff, and he says, I'm coming. And he says, and you're not paying me. And I'm like, what? I got the same thing from someone from DC. And I'm like, man, the favor upon what is happening because we're being obedient is really something to celebrate.
It certainly is. So as we close, talk a little bit more about your final thoughts on this network and really what you want the takeaway to be from what you and Wendy are doing as founders of the Nexus Mountain Network, and next steps people can take to be more intentional about their purpose from God.
So the last thing is that it's something that's been beyond what I have already shared is we want to connect. I won't say the older group with the younger group, because I would consider myself in the older group, right? So, but here's the thing. So much has changed since we were younger. Going to college doesn't mean the same thing anymore. There's so many different ways you can be successful. And we have a younger generation that is just desperate for hope, attention, guidance. And so one of the things we're going to be doing is something called Nexus Epic, EPOCH. And that is for the age group of 18 to 30. Great. And so much emphasis we're going to be putting on it. My daughter, who's an amazing communicator, is actually one of the 10-minute speakers. And she's going to talk about how to reach the next generation. And we are offering, if you're 25 and under, you get in for free, because we want to connect with you and encourage you and help you. So like, for example, I just went on a show of a podcast, and it's called Resident Skeptics. They're in their 20s, and they're going for it. And it's against the norm right now. And they're going to be at the summit, and we're going to give them space to interview people of great influence.
It's wonderful. That's wonderful. Bringing all of us together, because at our age, we still have so much that we can learn from those who are older than us, but yet we can learn from the younger folks too. And when we bring it all together, think how much better our world will be. And I just love all of it. I'm excited to be a part of the Nexus Mountain Network Summit coming up in June. I hope people will go to your website to learn more, download the app, and to be a part of something positive in this world. And I think that's awesome. So thank you so much, Chad, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.